pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next up, we're going to have recognition for Nancy Belcher, Deputy County Clerk of Operations for 10 years of service.
10
more.
I don't know why that. Next, I was here on time. Just like that for Friday. They want to buy that. Not your fault. Usually they go by what time.
Hey, we're catching up to you. It's a resolution authorizing acceptance of a ballot by mail granting $233.12. New York State Board of Elections. Anything you want to add to this, Stacy?
Okay.
Dave, you have anything you want to speak to?
On ballot by mail.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
He asked if we have anything else to say. It's we received all three of these grants at the end of the fall, around election time.
Yeah.
And we're hoping the ballot by mail grant is supposed to cover costs related to increased vote by mail usage. It covered those expenses from last fall and from moving forward.
So,
Covered that the account numbers are wrong, budget mod. There should be a revenue line on that second line, it's an expense line. Veronica's getting the correct number to change it to.
okay.
Or we're trouble.
Yeah.
You have to amend it.
Also, the informational memo calls it Project VBM, and on the
It's
budget mod, it says BBM.
It's BBM.
BBM?
Yep.
You see one difference?
Yeah, the only difference is we gotta insert a revenue number, or revenue in the object line.
So we have to amend it to that. So we'll get the first and second.
I'll make a motion to amend.
Okay, we have the first and second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Back to the original. All in favor? Aye.
Do we have to amend it first with the right number?
She's getting the right number. If you just give us permission to put the right revenue number, it's just gonna be a state revenue, general state revenue line.
We could do that. Sure.
Here we go. Okay, the correct number, instead of 5455, is 430890. And project, you know, still want the project?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Do we anticipate this is going to be enough for the rest of the year, or?
It was intended to cover costs related for the end of last year and what was left for ongoing costs. So
Does
it's,
not
we
cover
have,
the election coming up?
I don't think we're gonna have any issues because we've already budgeted monies for that election as well. So we have, I think we're going to be covered for the year for sure.
We need new envelopes that reflect our new address, though.
That's one of the major
That's
expenses
the
for this
big-
particular grant.
We have to replace all our envelopes in the office with our new Water Street address.
Okay. Thank you.
GC2 is a resolution authorizing acceptance of electronic book grant funding of $93,989.04 from the New York State Board of Elections to Oswego County.
Same issue with this resolution and the next one. So you have to amend it and the next one.
Okay.
No revenue.
Now we've got about this for just.
Revenue.
Oh.
Oh, just a public doc.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to amend it with the changes.
Okay. First and second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now back to the original. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. GC3, the resolution authorizing acceptance of the general election 2024 grant funding. $36,127.27 from New York State Board of Elections to Oswego County. Is that being amended also? First, second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Back to the original. All in favor?
Hey Dave, did we fill out something wrong? Is that why it has to be amended? I guess,
The revenue, you use both, object of expense lines for both lines and instead of a revenue.
okay, we didn't get anything back, so I guess we didn't realize, well, it's our
We'll
first one.
come talk to you.
Yeah.
I've been here a long time, I'd make the same mistake once, so.
And then it changes too.
Okay, GC4 is a resolution authorizing the creation and funding of a capital project for the purpose of advancing the Phoenix Schuylkill wastewater treatment and conveyance project.
Sir, Mr. Chairman, we have adequate funding for this project from various sources, including the town, the IDA, the village, and one federal grant and 2 state grants. So it's important for us to first create this capital project so that on your next resolution, you can award engineering and design services so the project can get started. We will be amending this at a later date. The county still has $1 million to put into this project, but we haven't determined the source yet. So when we do, it might not be right away. It could be 6 months or a year from now. It's like a 3-year project probably, so it will be further amended.
We have a first, a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. GC5 is a resolution awarding the professional service contract RFQ 24-OS1-002 Tech and Engineering Consulting Service of the wastewater treatment plant. Barton and Lejudas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You got some good responses in, and we engaged all the funding partners and also the wastewater treatment operators in Phoenix because they have the best sense of knowledge about future operations and costs. It was close. B&L was more expensive, but they're going to make some changes that we think will be important. So the village weighed heavily on leaning towards the proposal that Barton and Judas made.
Good.
We had 11 people review this, so it came out on top.
Thank you.
Second.
Second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Next up, we have a resolution of Oswego, New York, dated February 13th, 2025. Authorize the construction of fiber optic broadband internet in the county. The estimated total cost of $28,265,040. appropriating, said the amount there, including the 4 million in ARPA funds of the county, and authorize the issuance of $24,265,025 in bonds of the county to finance the balance of the said appropriation.
Yeah, so this project is, except for the ARPA money that we put in, the rest of it is 26 million funded by the state. But it's all on a reimbursement basis, and you can only apply 4 times during the 2-year period. So the bonding basically lets us have cash flow to be able to complete the milestones and then seek reimbursement. So it's all short term.
Good. We have first discussion. Frank?
Refresh me, did we award this to?
So we early last year,
I know we voted it, but what did we, that's what I need, refreshment.
yes, early last year you awarded the construction and operation and maintenance of the network to Empire Technologies. And then recently you also awarded consulting contract to ECC Technology. So the money's split between them and a whole bunch of other contractors. But well on its way. It's got to be completed by December 31st of next year. So it's moving very fast.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I just wanted to know how confident you are that the state will reimburse for the bond money.
We had this conversation with the broadband office last week because a lot of questions came up with the media responses about locking down all federal funds. And this money is federal at its origin. It's the same legislation that authorized the ARPA money, but it's a capital project fund in that particular legislation. And everyone involved believes that this will go forward, especially because internet or broadband access across the country is a high priority of the federal government. So there may be other things that get impacted, but we expect broadband is going to be safe.
Thank you.
And some of it will make it to Hannibal.
I hope so, because nothing else does.
Any other questions? Okay. GC7, this is a resolution declaring the Oswego County Legislature as the lead agency for the proposed action involving the construction of fiber optic broadband internet within the county, and determining the proposed action constitutes a type 2 action under New York State Environmental Quality Review Act.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a technical process. When you spend money as a government, that comes from other folks, and for certain types of activity, you have to go through environmental quality review. The state's legislation and regulations are broken down into various categories, type 1, type 2, and not classified. So type 2 activities are wide and varied. Some of them are specifically called out in the legislation. Other ones, you have to do some research before you can fall into that category. But there is a section in the regulations that specifically say the types of activities that we're going to be performing are exempt from secret review. So this is just a formal process to say that we went through the steps. We determined that it was type 2, and lead agency means anybody else who's involved can appeal, and they can apply to be lead agency, but that rarely happens. So it's just a formality in this case.
Look for just a second. Thanks, Dan. Next up, we have a resolution setting the standard work days and reporting for elected officials, elected and appointed officials for New York State retirement.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
let me speak. Fine, I know that I do a lot more than the other county electeds as far as days. Mine really should be pushed back to 20 instead of 20, whatever it says on there.
22.79.
Where the hell are you going with this, Kevin?
So yeah, so it's been a problem for probably back when I was a chairman, and it just got transposed over and over. HR, we finally fixed it last year with HR,
Right.
so the max you can have is 20.
Right.
Yeah, so if you can make a, do it or change it and then approve it, that would make my life a lot easier when I deal with the retirement system.
So we have to amend this here? or-
Yes, it had, well, yeah, because you got it in front of you. If you accept that, it's got to be in mine, at least mine amended to 20 and then approve it at 20, the whole thing.
All right.
Make sure it's in the minutes that he does more.
I'll make a motion. We'll check the time clock.
Okay, let's second that.
Second.
All right, first and second to amend that.
All
All right,
You better,
Frank?
Oh, you got, this somebody,
no,
Yeah.
go ahead.
I second it.
Yeah, we
I
got it.
can't wait to hear what you have to say. 'Cause I see you're at full-time hours too.
well, should I even be on this anymore? I'm already collecting.
Yeah, this is last year's, and they said I can take it off when I put it into them. It doesn't matter on the resolution. Yeah, I've been talking to the state retirement system, and the reason we're doing, this went in last year in August, our
Right.
August ledge meeting, and Laura was still on it, and she retired at the beginning of August, so she had to come off, and I'm going to send her records of activities to them for January through August. So that's why we have to send this through again. But we can take you off, Frank. She said that you're already in the system, so it doesn't matter one way or another.
So,
Do you want me to take you off?
so you can amend it to.
Take you off too.
Because I know there's some questions, but
Yep,
that's
we
too
can
bad,
take,
but, you know,
yeah. We can take you
That's
off
the way
too.
it goes. So take me off.
It's gotta be amended, to take you
No,
off.
he stays on until the end of the year. Gotta
Right?
go for the calendar year.
Go to a different calendar.
Betsy will know. When do you have to take me off? Now, at this meeting, or?
Or for next year, for next year's, yes.
Okay, okay.
So it doesn't need to be amended.
But it doesn't have to be amended. I just wanted to make sure, because
Right.
Flat out somewhere.
I mean, Kevin's been collecting almost 3 hours more than he's supposed to for the past 20 years, but that's okay.
The sad part is, it's a negative for your retirement, so I don't want to get into that discussion. It's actually a negative.
All right. All right, so any other discussion? All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye. Back to original? All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. GC9, resolution, budgetary modification for, special district concerns. And this has become a computer problem, I think.
Yes, this is, last year, well, first of all, when DA appoints a special district attorney, legal department, the payments to that attorney should not come out of the DA's office. And when this was discovered last year, the legislature decided to take money out of fund balance, put it into the clerk of the legislature's, or the legislative budget, and create a line there so that it could, any special district attorneys could be paid out of that line. When the budget was created, there's something with Munis, I don't know if we figured it out yet or not, but that new line that was created in August was not pulled into the new budget. So neither Betsy, me, or Veronica were flagged that that new line was there, so it didn't get funded for the 25 budget. So what we're asking is to fund the line out of fund balance for the 25 budget, and we're figuring out what the technical glitch was that ignored that line in 24. So hopefully in 26, we'll have to do this, we'll budget it in 26.
What approved?
I'm gonna make a motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Update to the PRP regarding wealthy.
Yes. This is the committee with jurisdiction over operating policies that affect all departments. And they go through usually a jurisdictional committee, and then you have final approval. Since you meet first, sometimes you approve pending the jurisdictional committee's review, which is true for 2 of these. This year, we're going to be doing some deeper looks into our current policies, so you may see some of these coming forward during the year. Because the last time we did a deep overhaul of our operating policies was 2006. It was done by a much younger version of me in a different title. But over time, things change, technology changes, the structure of the government, internal structure of the government changes, regulations change, so we need to update these policies to match current procedures or clean up procedures that are kind of vague. The first one is how we make policy. The only really change to that was changing the name of this committee, clarifying the route and the role of the jurisdictional committee, so very minor change. And we were provided a clean version to make it easy to read, and we also put in a marked up version in red that shows you what the changes were. Basically, you get organized through my office, and it updates the government to the Government Courts and Consumer Affairs Committee. And then it does go through the jurisdictional committees also when it's a policy that affects.
We need to vote on this.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I move. Okay. We have a first, second. Any other discussion?
You're voting on the whole thing or just that?
Just that first one.
That first section.
Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, the next one is the travel policy. This one I've asked you, if you pass it pending. F&P will also have to take a look through this. This updates, as you may know, we've moved to a employee self-service portal to report not only hours, but also reimbursement claims related to travel. Our old current policy didn't reflect that, so this adds in the procedures employees have to use to submit for claims. It clarifies the process for getting travel authorizations, which is generally through the department head and then to me. That's our practice, so this says that now. It also clarifies what we won't reimburse. We've run into that a few times. We got into arguments with departments. We can't pay taxes. We don't reimburse alcoholic drinks when somebody's traveling. We've also come into situations where someone's traveling on behalf of the county, and maybe their family's in the same place, they want to stay a couple extra days. Well, what do we reimburse, what we don't reimburse? It basically prohibits anything associated with any personal travel that gets appended to business travel. And also accompanying non-county travelers. Sometimes, people go to conferences, their wife goes with them. This says, no, we're not reimbursing anything that has to do with the accompanying traveler. Volunteers are already covered in this. It mandates the use of county-owned vehicles if available to reduce our mileage reimbursement expenses. It gives the department head the ability to direct an employee to use a county vehicle instead of their own if the county vehicle is appropriate and available. It updates the daily meal allowance or travel expense allowances per the U.S. General Services Administration. That's basically a link you go to put in where you're traveling to, and then it tells you the maximums that are allowable to be reimbursed. Updates the forms, and another thing that the travel policy didn't really address well is occasionally we have emergency and court order travel where you may not be able to get an authorization that quickly, or there's no budget for it. These often happen with law enforcement investigations or DA prosecutions, things of that nature. So there's a procedure for that so that it's all authorized and documented. Those are the primary changes to travel.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Thank you. And third is the budget modification process. This simply updates, who signs these. We changed that procedure a while ago to see how it worked. It was working well. Clarifies the authorization process to conform with local law number 6. What's that? That's the law that defines what the county administrator can do with budget amendment. This is that $10,000 limit. And it was a little, I found a discrepancy between the policy and the law. This conforms the policy to the law. And the current policy didn't deal with certain budget transfer situations like the year-end budget mods and the rollover account, transfers of money from off-budget accounts like ARPA into the operating budget, and transfers to and from reserves. Some of those are defined by law, and we have procedures for it, but we had no policy that codified those procedures. The current policy is not updated to use the new account structure that Munis does, so it defines the account structure. Those are the basic changes to that.
Okay. The first. Second?
Second.
Right?
The signature that was changed last week, right?
Yeah.
Okay. As I see it, it's in here now.
Yeah.
Okay. Because before we were all signed. Yeah. All right. Good enough, thank you.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have some update from Rachel Dater. And that received $401,340.15 in various grant claims since December of 2024 meeting. And we're currently waiting for an additional $298,827 to come in from various grant claims. And she's working closely with the ILS to ensure these are paid out and we can apply. It's something you're gonna do monthly.
Yeah, the chairman the chairman asked that every month I give F&P a variance report.
Right.
And in that report, it is just basically the totals for department. The chairman asked I think he asked Betsy to see if there's a way to give a line-by-line report to each committee per department. And so I think Betsy was done. Okay. We'll be between her department and mine, we'll be supplying these every month until you tell us you don't want them anymore. But if you do, what you're getting is a department by department, line by line report on expenditures and revenues to date. Well, not to date, to the most recently completed month.
Right.
So if there's any questions on these, feel free to ask now or later.
I just looking at it because I asked, why are we getting this now? I mean, we used to have JD 905 when we looked at it.
Yeah.
If you wanted to see, wanted to know what was going on, what had happened, in any department, you just went to JD 905. So, yep. But every committee can go please now, be able to look through the departments that report to that committee.
Right.
And then you can look at anybody else's.
Right, and I can produce these on request for any department for
I know you usually
any
do.
time.
That's why I was wondering why we're getting it now.
Thanks.
Yep.
And next up, we have a reporting clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Pass it on.
So at the end of 2024, we compiled our annual report. I think we're a month or two early on this, but when you have good staff, you're able to get ahead sometimes. So, everybody will have a copy. The ones that aren't here, we'll put a copy in your mailbox. I do want to take a moment and thank my deputies who work very hard to help us keep the ship upright and moving forward. So my first deputy, Matt Bacon, the deputy of operations, Nancy Belcher, and then my newest deputy of motor vehicles, Kelsey Chronic. All of them have stepped it up along with my staff and really worked hard in 2024 as they have in the past. And 2024 ended up as a very decent year. Just some improvements I'd like to draw your attention to. Customer service is huge for us. We've had a lot of compliments on DMV and how we've improved our customer service. So I want to thank you for that. If you ever have an experience that you're not quite happy with, or you have a suggestion for us, don't be afraid to reach out, and we'll see what we can do to improve that. Another thing for financial protection in the office, we have implemented positive pay with our bank. So every check that's wrote by our office, actually signed by myself, I go in and I implement the check. It's a good checks and balance for us, and along with to make sure that the checks that are getting cashed are actually getting cashed by the right folks. With your help in the legislature, we were able to use our ARPA funding of $149,000 to digitize all of our deeds, some dating back to 1795. Puts us in a small group of clerk's offices in the state, so we are right on the cutting edge, and that really helps out our constituents and our abstractors because they can utilize the system remotely. They don't have to necessarily be right in the office, which is great. And it will protect us in the future if we should ever have a need for the office to be closed, which I hope never happens. We did implement our new fraud alert system. As some of you may know, through the IQS system that we have, you can be notified if a document is filed in my office under your name. We have utilized that a number of times. I know that some of you have asked for information to hand out to your constituents, and we have happily provided that. If you have any questions on it, don't be afraid to reach out. One thing I did want to draw your attention to with DMV, over the last year we've had, I hope I don't jinx myself in this, we've had minimal vacancies. We've been able to retain employees, which has really helped us to enhance that customer service and the knowledge base for our employees. It's definitely goes a long way when you have somebody that's working day in and day out for a few years now. They're really much more knowledgeable than if we're training all the time or we have to dedicate staff to that training. So that was really good. In our record center, we are implementing our new records management system, Laserfish. It's going gangbusters. We actually, this week, we will have every one of our veterans documents online for access for the Veterans Office. So that was a pretty good win for us. If you do continue on through here, you'll see that this year our total receipts that went to the office was $22.4 million. That's Nancy's side of the office. She prepares and helps me with the financials. It's her and one principal account clerk that handle all the money for the office. Kelsey has taken over the sales tax for the motor vehicle, which is something that our office hasn't done in the past, but it's my mindset that if it's motor vehicle related, the deputy motor vehicle should know what's going on with those finances. So really expanding her purview of the office, her offices, and giving her the right knowledge to help with that. And in the end, we are turning back $1.5 million. I do want to say that there are ARPA money involved in there, so it's skewed a little bit when it comes to expenses because we had $149,000 that we normally won't have. Other than that, our DMV transactions, they were relatively normal to where they have been the last few years. And I will let you know that the transactions so far, January to January, 2024's January numbers, we were at 9,616 transactions. And in 2025, up until January 26th, we were at 9,610. So we should beat last year's January's totals. So as always, just keeping you posted on what goes on in motor vehicle and in the office. Are there any questions?
I'm just wondering if you anticipate any problems or how you're going to handle the influx of people that need that real ID, is it? By Right?
Right, yep, that is a good question. We're prepared for it. We have our system down. One thing about having these knowledgeable folks that we've been able to retain is we can really process them through pretty quickly. Kelsey, is there anything you want to add to that?
I think
Getting prepared
with
for it.
that date having been pushed so many times, I think that it's kind of just gradually come in place. People just kind of come in and that's what they do.
Okay.
Most of what we deal with, most people have a real ID at this point, and if they don't, they've actually kind of decided to upgrade to the higher level than that. Anyways, it's the same process, it's the same time consumption. We're pretty quick with it. They come in, we take step 1 process, we make sure that they're all taken care of. Step 2 finalizes the process, and they're done.
Thank you.
And I encourage everybody, if you haven't already know any constituents, I'll be doing some
Yeah.
press here starting, I think it's next week. I have that set up as well about the real ID. But I encourage everybody just go get your enhanced driver's license and be done with it. We live so close to Canada that it's worth having it in your wallet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh wow! I'm just.
What, is there a symbol on the license? Is it a flag or what is it?
It's a state. It'll say. I don't know, my wallet
The
was
real
missing.
ID
Yeah,
up in the top right corner has a little black circle with a star in it. The
okay,
enhanced license has a little golden banner as well as a flag on the ID itself.
Thank you, Terry. Next we have a strategic initiative partnership.
Thank you, Chairman. Other than the infrastructure projects I talked about previously, which taken up a lot of our time, we're still moving forward on administering the ARPA funds. Basically, now we're at the point of project oversight and closeout. So we had over 100 separate projects that we funded with external money, and we go to each of those awardees and make sure that they use the money for what it was intended for, make sure they're on track to make sure it'll all be spent by the end of 2026, and then as they complete the project, go through a closeout process with them, make sure that they have in their files everything they might need if there's ever an audit by the feds. So I'm not sure what's going to happen with strategic initiatives at the end of March, but whether that goes to community development or you keep strategic initiatives, this next month might be the last report for the strategic initiatives office.
Thank you, Dan. Any questions? Next we'll go on to real property departmental fees.
Yep, thank you. So the tax bills went out back in December, and for January, our office didn't hear too many complaints aside from the usual, why are you sending this to the wrong address? I bought the property the first week of January. Why is my name not on it? Those types of questions. I do know the treasurer's office got some complaints from the tax collectors, as they seem to every year, about tax bills being, I don't know, so just this a litany of problems that they usually have, getting caught in the mail machine or not sealed appropriately or something. So being that we are essentially a vendor for the towns on this, I'm going to be putting together a survey to send out to the tax collectors first to see if they would be interested in having us contract a third party to do the tax bill printing as opposed to relying on central services to do it. And then if that is something that's of interest to them, would they prefer to do that themselves, contract themselves, or have us contract on their behalf before setting up a meeting in person with them, probably in April after tax collection's over and it's all fresh in everybody's minds, where we can meet hopefully in this room and they can all yell at me if they want. So
Hopefully that won't happen.
hopefully that will happen.
now, there's actually one town or village that does it on their own now? or-
Scruple does it on their own. The reason that I do like to try and keep it consistent with everybody is I sent tax bills to Scruple to print. They decided to print their own and ended up putting the wrong address on what's called a section of the bills that are called utility bills, the ones that go to utility companies. Those are supposed to be addressed to the county treasurer. They put them addressed to the town of Scruple and caused a lot of confusion for those companies that usually just send all their payments to the treasurer. So they need a little gentle reminder that they can't do that. It needs to go to the treasurer. And that's why hopefully if they were to be on board with contracting out to one of these companies, that would solve that issue, because it would be more choosing my words carefully, be more professionally printed that way. So I think that's probably the best solution. I have my county directors conference later this month, where there's often a lot of those types of vendors, so I can talk with them to get more information. I know this is what a lot of counties do, though. They don't do them in-house anymore, they just contract it out. So
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with the sealing of them and how each individual area manipulates it through their system. And they get crushed or they get ripped or this or that. We can't control a lot of that. It's our paper thickness too, and a lot of stuff that we really don't need to worry about, shouldn't have to worry about. That's why Scruple really haven't had one complaint from them. So that's why we want to outsource it. Like to, but we'll see.
And thank you. Any other questions? Thanks.
thank you.
Next up, we have the public defenders.
Thank you. Three things going on right now. One, Indigent Legal Services, ILS, they fund a significant portion of the office, and they require yearly reports. They require more than that, but the big reports are due yearly. They are on the state schedule, so they're due by the end of March. So we're working on that to hopefully keep the funding coming in, which is obviously very important. Along that lines, we are continuing our efforts to recruit. We have a couple of vacant positions. ILS does set what they call caseload standards, which is a recommendation, how many cases each attorney in the office can handle. We did exceed that, but not by so much or so early that it caused us any significant problems. So business went on as usual. A couple more attorneys, which we already have positions for. As I said, they're just vacant, would help that immensely. And finally, been working closely with Rachel Dayor, trying to shift whatever expenses we can from the assigned counsel program to my office. Again, salaried attorneys versus the hourly attorneys that assigned counsel has. So we have taken over, as of January 1, we have taken over Oswego City Court Domestic Violence Court, Oswego City Code Enforcement Court, and the Sex Offender Treatment Court in County Court. So that is 3 dedicated attorneys from ACP that those costs will now not be borne by the county, because my people are all salaried. So, and that's an ongoing effort.
Any other questions? Yes.
What are the case? So you've got code enforcement now. What else?
Domestic violence court for the city. There's also integrated domestic violence court, which is Supreme Court, which we do cover, but we're not the only ones. And then the sex offender treatment court. Most people who reside in the county who are convicted of a registrable sex offense, as part of their sentence, they're sentenced to go to the offender court. Basically, it's a way for somebody, it's kind of an enhanced probation, somebody keeping tabs on them and making sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing as far as reporting, keeping addresses up to date.
On the criminal aspect of it, what cases are you getting? Are you getting all felonies? Are you getting a lot of misdemeanors? I understand you get a certain amount of caseload, but a petty larceny from Walmart, is it the same as a grand larceny third?
Well, right now, the majority of cases that we have are misdemeanors, but that's just the breakdown of what they come in. We are taking, there's no case we're not taking. So long as the court, be it county court, town and village court, Supreme Court, whoever, so long as they're assigning us, we are, unless there's a direct conflict, we are taking all cases, so.
Okay, so,
And Brandon and I will be meeting this week to go over the budget, since it'll be his first year doing this. I'm doing a bit of orientation, but also we'll get the numbers together on the portion of Bunner Street that the public defender can apply reimbursement for full hearing. That's due by the end of March. And also getting the office prepared to move into its new offices.
any other questions? Okay, thank you. City Council's out on Board of Elections.
Well, one or two things going on. We're in the middle of redistricting at the moment. We've decided, based on conversations with our vendor, an evaluation that they did of our situation, and conversations with other county boards who use the same vendor, to contract with them to help us institute into our registration system the new lines. We've got a rough idea of where we think the new local election district lines will lie. They're not by any means final. We started out with 110 districts. We're at roughly 110 or 109, I think. There were also a lot of street districting issues that we had to clear up.
Yeah, there was a lot of cleanup. We had a lot of problems that we didn't realize we had. They were able to identify them and zoom in, show us exactly where they were. So we believe they started Friday. That's our understanding, and we're going to talk to them today, but it should be around 2 weeks. This should be hopefully wrapped up and ready to go.
We've reviewed we reviewed the city ward lines and all the information that we have, the actual laws as they're written, not the maps as they were created. We have found multiple sets of maps in our records from previous redistricting that say different things. So we've worked with the two cities to make sure that we know exactly where their lines are supposed to be, and make sure they know exactly where their lines are supposed to be. Other than that, since we both just took over, we're in the process of reviewing and revising office operations and policies. We're new to being commissioner, but we're not new to the office. So we had a lot of thoughts coming in, and we're in the process of making a number of changes internally at the moment.
Yes, we had our first staff meeting. It went well. We got a lot of good feedback from everyone, and we're going to change things up a little bit.
Okay.
We had a meeting also with our technicians out back, which we're told has never been done before, and they had a lot of feedback to give us. We're going to change a lot of things out back.
Okay, any other questions, Frank?
And like, I know, I hear what you're saying you're doing, okay? It's probably in light of what happened in the city of Fulton with 6th Ward Common Councilor. With that in every profession, everybody's mind, okay? And with what you're doing, are we saying that because we were confident before everything was good. All the district lines everywhere were all good. Okay, but now we know that there should have been questions asked.
Sure.
There weren't. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not you guys are new to the system, okay?
It's our
right.
It's our responsibility, and we're
now it falls on your back, okay? But what I'm looking is there any other than what you're using now? Are those the same people that we used before to say everything was good?
No.
Okay.
No. That's why we're spending the money and going with our vendor, because they are going to be able to do this accurately, and they can be held accountable if it's not.
Okay. Yeah. Will that affect the redistricting lines that were just drawn?
No. The legislative lines, we made one change to the legislative lines because there was a corner of the districts
Ledge 14 and 17
between Oswego and Scriba, where there were like 6 voters that would have necessitated creating an election district for 6 people. So we did fix that, but other than that, the legislative lines that they were passed.
Those are staying.
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, that's
There's
the law.
one corner. It's Oswego City and Scriba. It's right over by KTM. There's 6 people that needed to stay in 14 that were put in 17.
The only reason I question it, okay, is before everything was good. Everybody was, the city of Fulton, everything was great, the redistricting lines, no matter how many times you drew them, everybody was happy with everything, okay? But now we've done it, it's been since even 2013, everything looked good, but it really wasn't, okay? Not only in the city of Fulton, but what I'm looking at is I'm looking to ensure that everybody gets, one man, one vote, and they get the proper, representation, and they get the proper, districts that they're in, okay? And I know what you're saying, okay, is that are both committees, okay, I'm talking about the political committees, okay, are they happy with what's going on with what's being looked at? Because they're the ones that are the ones that possibly get hurt, okay? Some of them it helps, okay? And you're not gonna say anything if it helps you, but you should, okay? If it's wrong, it's wrong. I don't care if it's a Democrat or a Republican. If it's wrong, it's wrong.
We don't care if it's a Democrat or Republican either. We want it to be correct because we don't want our office to be reflected the way it's been reflected.
Well, what I'm getting to is, are the respective committees, okay, election committee, or, the political
I've been involved
committees.
every step of the way. My
Okay, so
commissioner
you're
called me
happy with
every-
you're happy with what's going on?
I can't tell what the other side does, but I know what my side informs
She's
me.
fully aware. We've both been in communication with our committees the entire time. And we can't speak to something that happened, 12 years ago.
Right, and that's not what I'm looking at. I'm not looking at 12 years ago, because that's water over the dam. You can't stop it. There could have been some people that shouldn't have got elected. They got elected. But right now, I'm looking at, from this date forward, from the 2025 election on, okay, is everybody happy with it? The committees, you guys, the Board of Elections certified everything before, and they certified all the elections prior to this being found out. But should they have looked at it differently? Should they have brought somebody else in to look at it?
So
that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, probably. I can tell you that there's been many different elections where voters have called our office and said, why would I be voting in this, especially in the borders. It happened up in Pulaski and Sandy Creek. Why am I being told to vote in Sandy Creek when I voted in Pulaski? And we can go and look, and we're like, yeah, you shouldn't be going over there. Why does this line say that? So certainly we brought it up multiple times, and we fixed plenty of lines that weren't lining up. Why those didn't get looked at closer, I can't speak to that because I was not in charge at that time. I can tell you, him and I have gone through, especially both cities.
Yeah.
We reached out to Oswego. Matt reached out to Oswego City too to get their exact lines. They're huge paragraphs. They're very confusing to read, but we went together with a pencil and a huge map and made sure, and we found many other mistakes. I mean, I wouldn't say many, but a good handful.
There were 3 mistakes. There were 3 errors from last time that we managed to fix. But I think part of the issue in trying to address your question as best as possible, part of the issue is how they did redistricting before versus how we're doing it now. Now everything is done with shape files, importing into our registration system. Before, the last time they did this, they had to do it manually, going street by street and sometimes house by house. So I think that's probably, I don't want to speculate too much about that. But But we found out during our last congressional redistricting, when we used the shapefiles and imported them into the registration system, and made a lot of changes based on those shapefiles that were different from the previous round of redistricting. So we've gone through, all I can tell you, Frank, is that at this point, we have verified to our satisfaction that we know where these borders lie. We've checked them with the clerks and the relevant authorities in both municipalities to make sure. And we're, one of the reasons that we're going to NTS is so that they can draw clean lines and they translate into our registration system accurately.
Well, the reason I was pushing it, okay? There's a lot of pushback in Fulton right now, okay? And you gotta understand, I mean, you think you voted for somebody in the right district and in the right ward, and then it comes to find out that it wasn't right for what number of years? I mean, I got people in Fulton, they're asking me, why do I have to go to Valmy to vote?
I understand, and when we
Okay, I
get
mean, they're
those
going outside the
calls,
city, and that polling place was put in by the Board of Elections, not anybody else, okay? But they're going to Valmy to vote. Almost 75% of the east side of Fulton votes in Valmy. Okay, and recently, when we redrew the lines, okay,
you're talking about the Elks Club.
Right.
Okay.
They put the Elks Club, in District 25, which it wasn't before, but, it is now, okay? And it's just not right.
So prior to that, we used, was it Cayuga? We used the college, wasn't that the?
Cayuga Community College, it's in the city of Fulton.
Yeah.
Right across the street.
Okay, we used to use, there was a couple other ones too, that were used. The church, we used to use the church.
But they had something going on there the days or something.
But, I mean, the church was open, but that's, it's gotta come back into the city. I'm sorry, you guys have gotta bring, how would Hannibal like to be voting in the town of Oswego?
Well, it is across
For
the.
their, all
I
their
think
voting.
that's the same thing.
But you guys go to the town of Oswego. The people in Hannibal.
I think people in general don't like change, but it sounds like you're way ahead of the game and you're on top of it.
Well, when they changed it to the Elks Club from Cayuga, I mean, there was many reasons for that. It is across the street. I realize it is in a different town, but it is across the street, so it's not a huge.
It's not on a bus route. It's not on a bus route.
The
either.
bus goes to Cayuga Community College.
Right, it does not go to the Elks Club.
There's plenty of polling places that buses don't go to.
Don't go to Hannibal.
They don't even have a bus.
You don't have a bus.
Do you have a suggestion of where in Fulton would?
I had a suggestion.
They can vote by
8
mail.
years ago, I had a suggestion to use it, the Holy Trinity Church in Fulton, okay? I suggested using that, and I had already talked to the priest at the time, and he said he would move things around to be able to allow it to happen there. And somebody said, well, what if the elevator doesn't work so that we can't get the things up and down? Okay, that's what they suggest, but that's not here. These guys don't wait for this. I mean, thank you. You guys are doing the right thing then, and I appreciate what you're doing. Thank you very
We're
much.
going to make it as accurate as humanly possible, and we are.
Okay, I know you will now because of what happened, and we appreciate that. The city of Fulton appreciates it. We just wish it had been caught before, but it's not.
We do too. This was not something I wanted to walk into on my first 2 weeks of my job.
So was that,
I'm not done
the
questioning.
trigger was you folks? were you
I'm sorry.
looking?
No, you can't now. I've got
Finding
the
the
floor.
problem was you folks.
No, we can't.
Oh, you
we
could. You
we
call
weren't
a point of
aware.
order. You call a point of order like,
We were asked to
your
look at the
majority
lines.
leader
We got
does.
a
Go ahead.
So what triggered what happened in Fulton?
It happened, whatever it was, it happened in Fulton. Whatever.
So what triggered that, Frank?
What triggered that is I understand that someone questioned why, I would, if I'd have seen it, Utica Street was in the 5th Ward, actually. But somebody from outside the city of Fulton, I understand, questioned it. The codes went in and looked at it. I don't know how codes got involved in it, but they did. And it showed, because I know Cayuga Street is the actual dividing line between 5th and 6th Ward. North side of Cayuga Street is the 6th Ward. South side of Cayuga Street is the 4th Ward, or 5th Ward. But when you get down, all of a sudden, to 3rd Street, yes, 3rd, all of a sudden it jets over into Utica Street for the 6th Ward. Why, in God's name, it happened, we don't know, Terry. But, it did cause a problem because people were voting from 3rd Street down, in the 6th Ward all this time, and they actually should have been voting in the 5th Ward.
And this is more common than you think. We've gotten so many calls over the years, like I said, especially up north. And unless when someone calls, we can take a look at it and say, "Yup, that little tiny area there is not right," and we can fix it right then and there on election day. But when people, I mean, this affected, I found 15 voters, I think he found 17 voters this affected. No one called all these years and said, why am I going over here and voting? Unless it's brought to our attention, we didn't draw the lines. It's hard, you can't fix something that you didn't know what was wrong.
And it could have affected other elections for other,
Certainly, I mean,
people's names weren't on ballots that should have been on, and especially now since the lines have been redrawn. And I'd say almost 2/3 of the 6th Ward is now out of 25th District. I think it's about 2/3.
Well, look at
pretty close, Dave, from Seneca Street.
For that ward, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, at some point you have to draw the line. You can only have so many people per legislator, right? And if you have a community that has more than that number, you're gonna have more than one legislator.
But, it happened, and that's how it happened. And how it was found, I don't know all the details, but I know that it was brought forward by the codes department. And then they looked a little bit further into it. And now I'm hearing the understanding that the guy could have finished out his term.
That had nothing to do with us.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So,
all we can say is prior to 2013, it was incorrect. Something happened in 2013, and going forward from today, it will be correct.
Okay, well, good enough. Thank you very much. I'm all set.
And you're gonna be
Thank
mailing
you.
out people's polling.
I'm done.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm
So
done
there
there.
should
Now
be
she
no
wants to make a motion,
confusion
she
from
Yes.
voters.
Yeah, mail check cards will go out. People will still be confused, but for the most part, the polling places haven't changed.
Right.
So most people are going to vote in exactly the same spot that they voted before.
All right. Thank you very much.
But you didn't understand that part there?
No, I believe the issue is the city charter lines. They weren't correct. They didn't update the city charter. It had nothing to do with the county line. It had to do with the city charter.
These are all my voters. Now we got another 6 that I had.
I didn't hear.
Yeah.
I didn't hear.
You picked them up on plan.
Hey, did you say it?
I get to.
Oh, we have said it first, I heard you. Hand signal, though.